I still remember the exact moment everything shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but in that quiet, uncomfortable way where you realize you've been slowly shrinking inside a relationship you thought was solid, and it all came to a head on a Friday night that was supposed to be simple. Just dinner with her friends, the same group I'd been around dozens of times, laughing at their inside jokes, paying for shared bills, pretending I didn't notice the subtle digs that always seemed to land in my direction. At first, I told myself it was harmless, that maybe I was just being too sensitive, but over time it became harder to ignore the way she would laugh a little too hard when they teased me, or how she never really defended me, just brushed it off like it was nothing, like I was supposed to just take it and smile, and I did, for longer than I should have, because I cared about her and I didn't want to be that guy who makes things awkward. But that night felt different from the start. There was this edge in the air, like something unspoken had been building and was finally ready to break. We were halfway through dinner when one of her friends made a comment about how I barely kept up with their lifestyle, laughing like it was a joke, and I forced a smile, but I glanced at her, just for a second, expecting at least a look of discomfort or maybe a quiet, "Hey, that's enough," but she just smirked and sipped her drink like it didn't concern her, and that's when something in me tightened, not anger exactly, just a kind of clarity I hadn't felt before. The conversation moved on, but the tone didn't, the jokes kept coming, each one a little sharper than the last, and then the bill arrived, sitting there in the center of the table like a test no one had announced, and before I could even reach for it, she leaned back in her chair and said, casually, like she was commenting on the weather, "If you can't handle it, you can leave, but pay your part first." And the table went quiet for a split second before her friends chuckled, like it was just another one of those jokes, but it didn't feel like a joke, not to me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw something I hadn't wanted to admit before. There was no hesitation in her eyes, no softness, just this cold certainty, like she genuinely believed what she said. Like my presence there was conditional, transactional, something to be measured and paid for. And strangely, I didn't feel embarrassed the way I thought I would. I felt calm, almost attached, like a switch had flipped somewhere inside me. I nodded quietly and said, "Okay," and that seemed to amuse them even more, one of her friends making a comment about how I was finally getting it. But I wasn't reacting to them anymore. I was already somewhere else in my head, replaying months of small moments I had ignored, all lining up into something undeniable. I took the bill, looked at it for a second, then pulled out my card and paid the entire thing, not just my share, the whole bill, and that got their attention, the laughter fading into confusion, someone even saying, "Wait, what are you doing?" But I didn't answer right away. I just handed the receipt back and stood up, and that's when she frowned, like the script wasn't going the way she expected. "What is this?" she asked, a little sharper now, and I finally spoke, not loudly, not angrily, just clearly enough that everyone heard me. "You said pay my part if I can't handle it, so I did, and now I'm leaving." And for a second no one said anything because it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive, it was just final. She rolled her eyes at first, like she thought I was bluffing. "Oh please don't make a scene," she muttered, but I was already reaching for my jacket, and that's when it hit her, that I wasn't playing along this time, that I wasn't going to sit back down and pretend everything was fine. Her expression shifting from annoyance to something closer to panic. "Wait, you're serious?" she asked, and I paused just long enough to meet her eyes one last time, and I said, "Yeah. I think I've been serious for a while, I just didn't realize it." And then I walked out, leaving behind the noise, the confusion, the version of myself that kept trying to fit into a space that didn't respect him. The air outside felt different, like I could finally breathe without that constant pressure in my chest, and I remember standing there for a minute, expecting to feel regret or doubt, but it never came. Just this quiet sense of relief that settled in deeper with every passing second. She called me later that night, of course, her voice a mix of anger and disbelief, asking why I overreacted, saying it was just a joke. But for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I just listened, let her talk, and when she finally paused, I said, "It stopped being a joke a long time ago." And that was it. No argument, no back and forth. Just a clean break from something that had been slowly wearing me down. In the days that followed, I replayed that moment over and over, not with regret, but with a kind of understanding I didn't have before, realizing that sometimes it's not the big betrayals that end things, it's the small, repeated dismissals, the way someone makes you feel like you have to earn your place in their life, like your worth is negotiable. And the truth is, agreeing to her words that night wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about finally choosing myself without needing their approval. And if there's one thing that stuck with me, after all of it, it's this. Respect isn't something you argue for, it's something you walk away for when it's no longer there.